Well, as you know, much of the post-budget discussion here in Queensland was on why there was no special funding announcement for Cross River Rail, a $5 to $6 billion project. We've heard already in the post-budget discussions with Treasurer Scott Morrison that he's a bit troubled by Queensland's figures. I was very surprised to learn that not everyone is keen on the Cross River Rail project. The state government wants it. The LNP opposition's got an idea of a very fast train. But a not-for-profit group of developers and entrepreneurs called the Suburban Alliance have said, look, we just can't keep funneling all financial resources into the CBD, that gold-plated 5-kilometre rim around the city. And apparently other world cities are going in the opposite direction. Steve de Nys is a member of the Suburban Alliance. Steve de Nys, morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, your organisation thinks the government needs to take a view that isn't focused on the centre of the city all the time. What are we doing wrong, Steve de Nys?
Well, our view is that we are focusing totally on the CBD and inner city of Brisbane without really providing an equitable support for the suburbs. We've had some great urban renewal projects over the last 15 to 20 years, all focused on the inner city, and we believe it's time for suburban renewal.
Like where?
Well, there are plenty of suburbs in Brisbane that could benefit from increased investment in infrastructure and planning. But examples include Chermside, Upper Mount Gravatt, Springwood, Darra, Salisbury.
Well, let me choose Chermside. What could be done at Chermside that would be a better bang for the buck for money?
Well, I guess where we're trying to come from, Steve, is reducing the amount of travel trips between people's home and where they work. If we can create more employment opportunities closer to where people live, and the vast majority of people do live in the suburbs, we will reduce the demand for public transport and for car trips. And Chermside's a very good example. 30 to 40 years ago, it was established as a business precinct. We've got the Australian Tax Office out there and obviously Westfield, but nothing's really happened over the last 20 to 30 years in terms of real initiatives to enhance employment in that precinct. And government can help by improving the amenity and transport connections to Chermside. And one of the ideas that's been floated has been the idea of undergrounding the Bruce Highway through Chermside to create a similar outcome to what was achieved at Nunda with the tunnelling of Sandgate Road.
What was the cost of that Nunda overpass or little Nunda tunnel? Can you recall?
No, I can't, I'm afraid, but it's not a major project, and I think in the course of time we can all see the benefits that the residents of Nunda and those that work in Nunda have benefited from that project.
My guest is Steve de Nys. He's a member of the Suburban Alliance. His organisation, which is a not-for-profit group, is arguing that too much focus is being put on the inner city, that 5-kilometre rim around the city. Where do most people live and work? I learnt that most of them apparently don't work in the city. Most of them live and work near where they live.
That's right, Steve. Basically, 80% of people, or 80% of jobs are outside the inner city fringe. And around 90% of the population live outside of that area. So most of the jobs are not in the CBD and fringe as is popularly reported.
So, I mean, you're concerned that this entrenches inequality. In other words, it favours, a minority of, in fact, a very small minority of people in the heart of the city to the great detriment of everyone else living in the suburbs.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we often hear about we often hear comments from the inner city elite, urban elite, where they often look down their noses on the great unwashed in the suburbs. But the vast majority of people that live in the suburbs want to live in the suburbs. They like the suburban lifestyle. And all it really needs, in our view, is a more equitable allocation of resources and planning to the suburbs to create better outcomes for people. It really is about not just, I guess, getting more efficiency out of our infrastructure, but also about ultimately improving the quality of life for the vast majority of people that don't live within the inner city ring.
Now, when I spoke to you on Friday making some inquiries about this, you muttered or mentioned something like the Cross River Rail is great for big business and great for big unions. Why?
Well, it's a massive project. It's said to be $5.6 billion, and I understand that doesn't include the actual railway stations themselves, so it's probably fair to say that a project like that might cost even more. Our view is that
Well, clearly the federal government is not happy with the figures either. So you think there are some question marks about the way that the funding is calculated?
Look, I'm not an expert in that area, Steve, I guess. But my view would be that if you really want to get or maximise your business case for a project like that, then you probably don't necessarily should be focusing entirely on how to get people into the CBD. I mean, a public transport system that's over capacity for a couple of hours a day, for an hour in the morning inbound and an hour in the afternoon outbound, is not necessarily the most efficient way to run a transport system. If we could enhance or increase the number of outbound trips in the morning and inbound trips in the afternoon and create better connectivity to our suburbs and ultimately creating more employment opportunities in our suburbs, then you're going to get a little bit more bang for your buck.
So keep people out of the inner city in the first place?
Well, I think it's probably more about enhancing the suburbs. We're not against the CBD and inner city at all. I guess what we're more focused on is just enhancing, and I guess what we see as being a more equitable allocation of resources and planning towards the suburbs.
Why is this so hard then? I mean, all of the focus, it's obvious the state government's committed to this project, all of the focus is on a $1 billion solution to just simply peak hour.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where we're raising some questions in terms of we can allocate $5.6 billion to a Cross River Rail project, or we could have 10 $500 million projects in the suburbs. I guess that's the sort of rationale we're trying to apply. We're not against the Cross River Rail, I should point out, but we would like to see more focus on the suburbs and how they may benefit from such a project.
I appreciate you coming on this morning. Thanks very much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Steve.
Steve de Nys from the group the Suburban Alliance, which is a not-for-profit group of developers and entrepreneurs. They made a submission to the South East Queensland Draft.